Do you ever read much more than you originally thought you did? That's me in May. Hi guys, welcome back, bienvenue, and all that jazz. It's time to talk about some books, or specifically today we'll be talking about the 5 graphic novels that I read this month. So we'll start off with some statistics like usual. So I read 8 books, like I said, and of those books, there was 1 3.5 star read, 3 4 stars, 2 4.5 stars, 1 4.75 star, and 1 5 star, for an average of 4.28 stars, which friggin' fantastic. So I really enjoyed almost every book I read this month. The only one that really tanked that score was Tower of Dawn, shocking absolutely nobody because Kale is the worst. So I read 4,388 pages total, which averages to about 140 pages per day. And as usual, this will be in no particular order. I'll probably start with the books that I don't own and then go into the books that I do. And of course, like usual, I'll end with my favorite book of the month. So first, let's talk about a self-pub that I read this month. So that is A King's Radiance by L.R. Schulz. And this book is great. It's a brand new self-pub that was released in the month of May. And it is, I have a whole spoiler-free dedicated video review about this book, so I won't belabor the point. I'll link it on the screen if you're interested about more information. But it's very much that whole group of people rebelling against the evil empire in this world. The people who can use magic basically can absorb sun energy through their skin and channel it later as a substance called shine. This shine can be channeled as beams of sunlight, balls of sunlight fire. It can be used to basically surround your weapon with sunlight and make it into a sunlight lightsaber thing. And there is this crazy emperor guy known as the King Radiant who controls 6 different kingdoms. He's a kind of a jerk and does a lot of kind of bad things, and there's definitely deeper lore and more interesting things going on underneath the surface that we get introduced to later on. The fight scenes very much bring to mind Avatar: The Last Airbender type fight scenes. Picture the Sunbenders at season 3? If you know, you know. So super fun, super great. I gave that book 4.5 stars. The next book we'll talk about is another arc that I got to in the month of May, and that would be The Stardust Thief by Chelsea Abdullah. This is a brand new release from Orbit Books that also is out and available now. I also have a full dedicated video review for this book as well, so I'll link it wherever if you want more specific information about this book in particular, but it's very desert fantasy full of djinn. It almost feels very much gender-bent Aladdin retelling kind of deal. I know it's very much based on, the 1001 Nights, the Arabian folktales and stuff like that. And so we have our main female character, I think her name's Leonie. She is the night merchant, and she is basically this thief who has a bodyguard who follows her around, and she gets tagged by the king to go on this quest for a magical lamp. So we first, in the initial chunk of the book, first 20% or so, are very much just learning about our characters and kind of the world we live in. We then go on a traveling quest where things definitely explode. And the very last thing that happens in this book has me real excited for book number 2. And I cannot wait. And I'm so jealous because I recently subscribed to Lumicrate thanks to my mom. And I'm so jealous that the Fairy Loot box got the Stardust Thief with those pretty lilac-y purple. I'm jealous. But anyways, this book is great. I gave it 4 stars. It's super fun. There's absolutely almost zero romance in the book, which I found kind of refreshing after reading. If you know, I've been reading through a bunch of Sarah J. Maas lately and hating the way that she does relationships. And so it was nice reading a book where there wasn't even kissy times. There was really nothing. There is potential for maybe a love triangle or some love interests to be kind of expanded upon in book 2. I kind of hope she doesn't go that route because I kind of liked that there wasn't any love. I didn't like. I liked that there wasn't any like romantic stuff. It was all just like friends and you know what I mean? Like, I just enjoyed that aspect to it. It's very action-packed, just fun, adventure, good times. Then I read The Voice of War, which is another self-published novel by Zack Argyle, who, this is book 1 in the Threadlight trilogy, which book 3 is currently with his beta reader, so it'll probably come out later this year or early next year, so now's a great time to jump into book 1. Book 1 definitely felt like a lot of set up for future events. So we got a lot of like the political goings on in this world, and we follow a few different perspectives, but the main one is Chris Valerian and his wife, who is pregnant. And at the very beginning of the book, they are going to this ceremony because in this world, eye color kind of determines if you have magic or not and what kind of magic you have. So if you have brown eyes, you're considered an achromic and do not have the ability to see or manipulate threadlight, which is kind of almost like the Force. Like it's these threads that connect everything. And if you have blue eyes, you can push on these threads or push on objects in the world around you. If you have green eyes, you can pull on them. And there are legends about potentially other colors, which I won't go into because it's spoilers, but read it if you want to find out more. But Chris is kind of tagged by the king to investigate these crimes that have been going on with this group called the Blood Thieves, where they basically are stealing thread weaver blood. And we don't know why. There is lots of political maneuvering, lots of moments, all of those things. And there's also these lovely beings called chromo wolves, which are these adorable wolves that have like 2 tails. They're green and white. They live in the like Feywild forest. There's an animal companion component. So if you like a pretty hard magic system that's very well defined with very clear limitations, and you like a lot of political maneuverings and kind of investigation mystery type fantasy novels, then I couldn't recommend this more highly. I gave it 4 stars. Then we'll jump into a whole chunk of books. BRB. Ugh. You saw them in the thumbnail. Here they are again. So I read Heir of Fire, Queen of Shadows, Empire of Storms, and Tower of Dawn. This is books 3 through 6. I can count. I can do math. What? I'm a science PhD, not a math PhD, so sue me. So these are definitely where the Throne of Glass kind of expands, and we get to see the much more worldwide plots and goings on and lore and all of that stuff leading into the final book, book 7, which I am currently reading and loving. So Heir of Fire is where we get a surprising reveal at the very end of the book, which I think it's funny because I was buddy reading this, of course, with Shoshana and Ingrid, channels linked down below, and I clocked the dramatic reveal like really early on, and they were both like, hey, it was surprising to me at the time, okay? And I was like, whatever. But so Heir of Fire was good. It's definitely not my favorite in the series. I gave it 4 stars. I think I don't like it as much because there is a lot more focus on like the romantical stuff, and I despise the like alpha male trope. I just feel like it really feeds into like almost romanticizing toxic masculinity, where these overprotective, overly dominant, overly aggressive, kind of douchey dudes are seen to be super desirable, and like, oh, it just shows how much he loves the character. And I'm just like, what are you even? No. And I know that people tend to always talk about how, oh, well, I like it in books, but I wouldn't like it in real life. And just for somebody like me, as a young gay man, or not so young, because I mean, 95, but growing up, it was definitely like a bone of contention for me, where my brother was the football player and all of that kind of stuff, and then I was not any of those things. And so I think seeing that romanticization of that uber masculine male garbage, just like, no, just and I think it is in Heir of Fire, that her male interest meets her cousin and like growls because her cousin is a male in her, like, anyways. So like, I don't like Sarah J Maas's romances. Like, I've liked one of them. And I won't say who. If you really want to know, you can DM me on Instagram or something, which is my socials are all linked down below if you want to follow me on any of those places. But like, there's one romantic plot line that I enjoyed out of who knows how many, nobody's counting. And then Queen of Shadows was so much fun. It really got a lot more action-packed. We really delved deep into some of the lore of the world. And the only thing I didn't like about this book was in the first 30%, Kale is a asshole. Like, he is such a dick. And I acknowledge and understand that, yes, he has gone through trauma, but trauma does not give you an excuse to treat everybody around you like on a repeating basis. Sure, maybe somebody triggers you that day, it triggers your trauma, and you're unpleasant in like one or two interactions, but homeboy is literally just always unpleasant to be around, and I don't like it at all. So if it wasn't for that, this book might have been much closer to a 5-star, but Queen of Shadows I gave 4.5 stars because when it gets good, it gets so good. Like, Sarah J Maas's magic systems, plot, like friendship dynamics, I love all of that. But her need to like pair up everybody, I don't necessarily love. Like, can we just be friends? And that's okay. Like, we don't always need to be love interests. Just saying. But Queen of Shadows, amazing. And then my favorite Throne of Glass book, at least so far, who knows, maybe I'll love book 7 the most. But my favorite Throne of Glass book was Empire of Storms. This is book 5. And I think I really appreciated this one because in the earlier books, Homegirl SJM starts a book real slow. Like, the first 30% were really kind of like dragging our feet, and a lot of them were kind of exploring some of the romance crap. And this book, we hit the ground running right off the bat. It is explosive. There are so many cool like fight scenes, and the ending of this book makes you so excited for the next book, and then you remember that the next book is like concurrent. So if you don't know, books 5 and 6 happen during the same period of time, but in book 5, we're following Selena and crew, and then in book 6, we're following other characters who've been sent to the southern continent to try to get aid. Yes. But anyways, favorite book in the series so far. It is so good. Sorry, there's like a ding on the back and it's really bugging me. But amazing. This is like my favorite book so far. The romance stuff, much less, much more focused on the plot, battle scenes. Without getting spoilery, I do not love Miss SJM's love of having her main character doing things off page to have dramatic reveals. At a certain point, I'm just like, okay, well, you've been with these people for so long, why don't you like involve them? Do you know what I mean? And so it's like, okay, I get it for the sake of like excitement, but also like, you do this in every book where there's hidden information that the main character knows and then dramatically reveals it later on. And I do acknowledge that because I read Crescent City first, and that went so left and horribly wrong in book 2 of that series, that I instantly see those things in Throne of Glass, and I'm just like, ugh. But this book, so good. 4.75 stars. Not quite a perfect 5-star because there is still some of the relationship. But best book in Throne of Glass for me so far. And then the last Throne of Glass book that I finished in May would be Tower of Dawn. And so it's hard to talk about these books deep into a series without getting spoilery, but this is Kale's book. So we follow specifically Kale. And again, we see his like cyclical patterns of just being nasty to the people around him. And yes, he's gone through trauma. He's processing trauma. Yes, I will not deny that. But I also am kind of like, okay, but like that doesn't excuse you saying and doing the things that you do. And like, I understand that you have like a hard time accepting yourself and like all of that. And some of the things that have gone on have really been difficult for you. But also, like, that stop being abusive of everybody. Like, And then I really don't like that some of the key things are because of character self-loathing. If you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about, and I won't say any more than that, but like... And like more with the different characters happening in book 7 currently, I'm just like, no. Did we? No. And then in typical, more traditional Sarah J. Maas fashion, the last like 30% of this book or so was fantastic, but the first like 70% just felt very much like this cycle that was like going nowhere. We would like improve and then get worse and then improve and get worse and I'm just like, and of course there's new relationships because every single main character has to be partnered with somebody because nobody can just be friends. So that is why this book really got dragged down for me, and this was a 3.5 star read. So then the book of the month, so my favorite book that I've read in the month of May was House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune. 5 stars, instantly loved every second of it. It is the most wholesome, adorable, gay love story set in like, it's just so good. It's so whimsical and so just, it gives me all the feels, the adorable magical children. I don't think that you should know a ton going in. I think you should just expect to be swept up in the whimsy. Our main character works for this government agency that oversees foster homes or orphanages for gifted children. And so he gets sent to look at one such place to determine if the caretaker is taking good care of these children and if they should stay in that environment, if it's healthy for them. That's all I'll say. It is, it got so up in my feels. I read it so fast. It is so good. If you're just looking for that wholesome, sweet, uplifting, adorable, just like heartwarming story that also centers on a male-male romance, I can't recommend it highly enough. It's also written by a queer author, which we stan on this channel. So if you haven't read The House on the Cerulean Sea, you should go read it ASAP. I will acknowledge I am aware that there was a little bit of controversy on the Twitter about the author, because I'm not even going to go into it, but if you want to find out more information about said controversy, I'm sure you can Google it and find anything that you could possibly want. I understand if you don't like the book and you don't want to talk about the book, whatever, but I loved it and I'm going to talk about it until I die because it was adorable and I want to read it again ASAP, but I don't own it. And I'm very sad that I didn't read it before the Illumicrate editions came out with this and Under the Whispering Door, because I'm like, oh, God damn it, it's like a favorite book of all time and now I don't own it, but whatever. And then just briefly, the graphic novels that I read the 4 available volumes of Heartstopper, as well as what is currently available of volume 5 on Webtoons. Loved every second of it. I just love the adorable, wholesome queer romance. I'm just loving that not every queer romance coming out currently is trauma. Because if you go back into any kind of like queer love stories in media in the last like 10 to 20 years, they are very depressing. We have Laramie Project, we have Brokeback Mountain, we have Rent, we have like trauma. So I'm just happy to see like a wholesome story that just reminds me of what being gay in high school was like, although it's much more hopeful in the graphic novels because people in the schools rally against the bullying and all of that kind of stuff, and there's such a sweet support system, and I just love to see it. It is so good. If you haven't read Heartstopper, you should read it. If you haven't watched the show, you should watch the show. I have a full gush about the show and why that kind of representation meant so much to me in particular as a gay male, and I'll link that if you're interested in seeing more about that. I do talk a little bit towards the end about my experiences in high school and why this show meant so much to me. So if you're curious to know more about me, then you can go ahead and watch that video and towards the end of it. And then the other graphic novel that I read was Blackwater. Oh, Heartstoppers, all 5 stars. Loved every single one of them. Loved the mental health rep. Loved all the LGBTQIAA, all of it rep. And then the last graphic novel I read was Blackwater. This was via NetGalley. And it was like a sampler but it was very Teen Wolf vibes. Boy meets boy, boy gets bitten by a werewolf. Now boy and boy are dealing with one of them being a werewolf type thing. So it seemed like it could be really cute. I didn't get the whole graphic novel, so I don't really know where it goes, but I got up to the point where one of the characters gets turned into a werewolf. So it seemed cute. It seemed like maybe it would be really fun and kind of give you those Teen Wolf-y type vibes, but with a male-male romance in it. And that's by Jeannette Arroyo. So I gave that book 3.25 stars because I feel like I read enough to have like a generic idea, but obviously since I didn't read the conclusion of the story, which usually like bumps things up in star ratings for me, I don't really know how I would feel about the entirety of it. So that's all of the things that I read in May. Have you read any of these, or what was your favorite book from May? I'd love to hear from you down in the comments down below. And like usual, while you're down there, go ahead and click that like button. And if you want to see more bookish stuff like this from moi, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Other than that, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll talk to you again soon. Bye!